jug. So when you start to see, grist bills where it's 5% or even less, what that's telling you is that folks usually, anyways, not always, but usually adding enzymes out of a jug. And so what I mean is in the mash tun, right? You're mashing all the grains, you mix it with hot water. Enzymes come from the malted barley, okay? And you need enough of those enzymes to break down the starches that are in the corn and the lot. Okay. If you're using what's called distiller's malt is kilned in such a way that it has 2 to 3 times the enzymes you get in a brewer's malt. So in other words, if you go to a brew pub around here, you'll see bags of pale malt.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by brewer's malt. Distiller's malt is killed at much lower temperatures. It tastes like raw barley. If you chewed on it, it's going to taste like raw barley because it's not dried with any kind of heat. Pale malt is killed off at 180, 190 degrees, and so it's going to get more kind of baked goods flavors in that malt, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when you would see the 20% malt in some of these older whiskeys, what that means is, more often than not, in my opinion, they were using brewer's malt. So what that's going to do is make it so folks, when they're talking about our bourbon, they'll say that it has a lot of similarities to Irish whiskeys or unpeated Scots, and it's because we're using more of that. So not only it's doing 2 things, not only are you adding more malt, it sounds like a dumb thing to say out loud, but it's addition by subtraction. You have less corn, you have less rye. So it's really changing the complexity of the whiskey, and it really is a different bourbon profile.
Yeah.
The folks in Kentucky and Tennessee are making whiskey their way, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah, right.
I'm a huge fan.
Doing it forever.
I can't compete with them on price.
Right.
So trying is a waste of time, or making whiskey like them is a waste of time.
Right.
So we're trying to take bourbon and rye and some other things in a different direction.
Yeah, I think that's what got me to even go for this. And I think, again, Tristan and all of us, we tried it as well. It was the different flavor that it was coming.
Yeah.
Very earthy and,
yes, sir.
Very smooth.
So, the only question is, do you like it?
Right.
And everybody has different palates. Yeah, some people have different palates. If you put a wild turkey in front of me or some of the Dickel bottled and bottled, drink that all day long. I never touch mine,
Yeah, right.
But I can also get in there and get in the mood where it just has a different palate.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a good thing.
Very good.
So that you got all of these wonderful whiskeys for your customers to choose from. And the fun part of the adventure is figuring out, when you get to the point where you ignore what everybody else likes, you ignore what the magazines say, you ignore what they say online, and then find out what you like, and then tell everybody to buzz off, right?
Yeah.
But that's the fun part of the journey, and I'm sure the fun part for you guys is you get to kind of see it.
Right.
You get to see somebody kind of going through it, and then, of course, in the end, what's it about?
Right.
It's the people that you get to meet, and the people that you get to kind of get involved in your lives, and then you realize that that's just, it's window dressing, and in the end, that's hospitality.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's why when, people have said, I went to brewing school in Germany many, many years ago, and there was a journalist who asked me, very offhandedly, what would you do if somebody gave you a Coors Light if they have you over for dinner? And I'm looking at him like, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to say thank you, and they're offering me hospitality in your home, and if you don't understand that, so I think bourbon, is in a very good place now because, the cocktail culture or even wine culture, at least when I was younger, it was turning into like social currency, right? Where, oh, well, you must be cultured if you know about Pinot, or know to say, well, not drink Merlot, or whatever the hell the dumb catchphrase is. But the people do complain what they call them taters or whatever. So they complain about that. Something, whatever. But I think for most part, people are able to steer themselves to what they like, ignore the price, ignore what's allocated, and find things that they enjoy and share it with friends. And to me, that's
my motive. We have allocated products, but just because it's part of the game. But people come in and like, hey, I wish I really had this Weller or this. I'm like, well, let me show you something. Let me show you something that you haven't tried. Let me show you this Green River we did for
absolutely.
Try it. It's $35-$40 bottle.
Yeah,
widely available.
Perfect example.
Wyoming
Whiskey and I've seen you've got Breckenridge and all the great whiting they're doing at Barrel and Jefferson's. That's OG blending, or certainly one of them. Old Elk is just that's Old Elk. I got to put my glasses on. Yeah, they're doing great. I mean, it's Greg Metz.
Yeah.
What are you going to say about that? He worked at MGP before it was MGP.
Right.
He obviously knows what he's doing, and he's making some wonderful things. But for us, it's exciting. Particularly Colorado, we have so many different distilleries.
Yeah.
And none of us are making whiskey the same way.
Right.
So Laws, do you guys have Laws down here? Okay, great stuff. Wonderful people. The owner's Canadian. To me, that's all you need to know. He's just the nicest guy you ever want to meet. And he was in finance before he got into this, right? So he's not into it to make money. He already did that. He wants to make stuff, and he wants it to be his stuff. And what's so great is when people come in for our tours, my whiskeys are much more rounded, much more soft. His are much more muscular and angular. And to me, when I get people that come in and they're like, "Oh, that's not really for me," I'm like, Alan Laws is right down the road. And from what you were saying, I bet you'll love his whiskey. And to me, that's a good thing, because the same thing happened with breweries, right? Where it wasn't just one that got big; all of them kind of got success together. And the exciting thing, at least for the small guys, we're coming up on our 25th year anniversary. We've got it in the bag there. Taste it, Mike. We've got the 8-year-old bourbon that we're just about to release, and we're finally at the point where it's cost competitive. So it's a cask strength 8-year-old, and the wholesale you guys will be around.
That's definitely good.
Yeah, isn't that exciting? We're tiny,
right?
But we're at the point where we're able to handle that, and we're certainly not the only one. I saw Peerless, or at least I did earlier today. Maybe I'm hallucinating.
Yeah, I've actually been trying to get Peerless, but I can't seem to find the distributor for it. I don't know who's.
Well, what I'm getting at is
that Empire.
A lot of these places. New Riff just came out with their.
New Riff finally came out here. Yeah,
and they're just the nicest people you meet. If you want to hear a founder's story, the founder of New Riff, and sold his liquor store, a very, very profitable, huge liquor store, back to his employees.
Really?
Great.
That's awesome.
I can't say enough good stuff about New Riff, and they're just rolling out with their 8-year.
Yeah. Well, they just rolled out in Georgia a month or so.
Yeah.
Who picked them up?
Empire.
New Riff did.
Yeah.
I'm a lager beer guy. I like something that's 4% alcohol, 5% alcohol, and all I would smell is burning, basically. It took me a while to come around, to understand the flavors. So for me, there's such a wonderful place with low proof, but for the high proof, to me, anytime you see something that's bottled in bond or higher, the distiller is telling you, I'm sure each distiller is going to argue with me, but telling you to add water. Because what that means is you get the aroma from reducing it with water, not whoever the hell is run the bottling line and doing the proofing, right? Where all of that aroma is going to be released. You get to enjoy that. But drinking it straight, I'm with you. It's not familiar. All I taste is heat, and it's so hard to. I always, Fred Minnick. I'm sure you're familiar with Fred Minnick. When I see him do the 100, and he's clearly distinguishing between these whiskeys. I don't know how he does it. I have no idea. But for me, once I get past 3, forget it. I lose it. I cannot do what he does. but my palate's just dead at that point in time. And for the most part, the way that we evaluate our whiskeys is I nose and I come back, put the cover back on, nose and come back. Go have a sandwich, go about my day, come back, see what else I'm picking up in the nose before I finally sip the thing. So watching, that crew and the people at San Francisco Spirits blowing through all of these samples at once. They've invited me a couple times, and I'm like, I think I would be the worst judge you've ever had because I can't do that. I don't have the taste buds somehow to handle it, and it's just, and it's what I'm getting at is that higher proof that really does me in when I'm pulling and tasting something off, directly off of the barrel. It's like, well, that's it. I can't taste anything else anymore. It's a bit like, being at a very loud concert and stepping outside, right? That ringing isn't stop. That's how it is for me with the super high proof stuff. But it can be frustrating for a distiller, especially if the proof in your warehouse goes down. The whole thing about hazmat. Actually, Nicole Austin had this awesome cheeky response to that. One of her, so this George Dickel, so they have their Harvest Moon releases, and one of them was 18 years old, and the proof had gone down. It had gone down so much it was no longer classified as whiskey. It was 38%. So it had to be labeled spirits distilled from corn, rye, and barley. I don't know, something like that, because it didn't meet that 40% tolerance. And it was delicious. It didn't have any alcohol, but it was full of flavor. It was 18 years old. It was beautiful. But that was her being cheeky because people keep asking her for hazmat. And it can be a bit frustrating when, folks are telling you to chase alcohol numbers instead of flavor. As a distiller, that can be a little frustrating. So we make the distillers do a handful of it. When you roast malt, so when you're talking about chocolate malt or black cat malt or any of those, in beer you can use 1, 2, 3%, and it's going to be balanced. If you do that in a whiskey, and you'll notice this, taste some of the American single malts out there, and it tastes like you're sucking on a coffee bean. Okay, that's from using too much of the highly kiln malts. So we're really tempered on it. So even though it's a handful out of 2,000 pounds, it's about a pound, you get the note that's coming from that chocolate rye. It's pretty crazy. So cask strength, that's about 55% alcohol. And again, about 55 wholesale, so 64, 5, 6, whatever the heck it is. It's going to show up on the shop. Yeah. Oh, I'm glad.